Hey there, friend. Welcome back. I'm Ben, a big thinker and deep feeler who is simply trying to live a life well lived, one that is full of meaning, and one where I feel connected to not only myself, but to others and to the world around me. I really just want to have a good time and make an impact. Is that too much to ask for? Because I don't think so. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you are joining me. I have something that I wanted to share. Now, I am really hoping that I can continue to do things like this going forward. I haven't been in a rhythm of doing so, but my goal, my intention is to do more of this because it feels really fun to me, and it gives me meaning. It helps me learn out loud, so to speak, but hopefully give value and connect with you through this. So if you're here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you, but also I would love some feedback on this today. The goal is to keep this pretty short and sweet. I am known for being rambly and long-winded, which I am fairly unapologetic for. But these, these talks, these chats, I want to keep to a little bit of a minimum. There's going to be certain things where I go off and really want to dive in on a topic, but in particular, these kind of like thinking out loud things, I want to be relatively quick. I want them to be super digestible for you because you're busy, you got a lot of stuff going on. I just kind of want to drop in, hang out with you for a little bit, and give you something to chew on, something to marinate. So today, let's just jump right into it from that. I have been indulging a curiosity of mine recently, feeling really pulled to learn more about nature, about the environment, about conservation, and a foundational element to all of this really kind of connects all these things. All these things are on top of it is ecology. So studying the nature of life and ecosystems, the interactions of life forms. Now, because I'm new to it, may have butchered that a little bit. I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, I should probably go check the definition of that. I know I read it recently. But that's the idea. And so within that, I have been listening to, reading from a lot of scientists. And this is interesting and kind of new to me because through what I've done over the past handful of years, whether that's personal or professional, I just really haven't consumed a lot from scientists, from people that are using the scientific method, that are really in that space. And because there's a very specific person, but just like lifestyle and process that comes along with that, a way of thinking. And so we're not getting into the weeds of anything today, which is why it's kind of fun, I think, and why I felt pulled to share, because I think that you will appreciate this. And what is this? Well, through ingesting a lot of this content, one thing that I've heard repeatedly now is like literally the words standing on the shoulders of giants. So this is a common phrase, but the energy behind this from scientists is, and this is why it's interesting to me, is that two big things. They have a certain gratitude for those who have come before them, right? That's kind of baked into this cliche or this phrase. They feel grateful for what has been created for them. Like they are simply carrying on this work. It's kind of like a relay race. The people that came before them ran, however many laps, and now they've been handed the baton. And they are doing whatever it is in their field of study, in their work. They are now running their leg of it. So they have this gratitude for those who've come before them, which is really cool, and you can feel it through that statement, that sentiment. But the other thing that I think is really interesting with this, the second piece of this, is that there's also an understanding that they are only running their leg of the race. And what I mean by that is that they fully understand that in their lifetime, they are not going to see like the finish line, right? They are not going to see all of the things that they know and probably wish that they could accomplish in their given field, right? Like they have an idea of where things are heading, the steps to get there, but they also realize that they can only do so much in a lifetime. And that to me is very interesting, because that then implies that they're okay with that. They've accepted that, and they've probably even embraced that they're not going to see the finish line. Now, this is where it gets interesting to me. Is like when we put this all together, I think a lot of people would see this as something that feels discouraging, right? Like, oh, well, that sucks. Why even do it? That feels restricting to know that, I'm not going to be able to make this end result or end impact, or, I keep coming back to like, you're not going to be able to see the fruits of your labor in a really big picture sense. But to me, and what I would argue, what I want to offer to you here is that is fucking beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful that they don't get to see, will not get to see the fruits of their labor. They are going to run their leg of the race, and they will never see the finish line. The reason I think that is beautiful is because it's no longer about them as individuals. They have to be, by what they have accepted as their mission, their vocation, they have to be connected to the bigger picture of what they're doing. They have to be in it for the people that came before them, to carry that baton, to move things along, and in it for future generations, for the ones that come next, for the ones that, to go back to the saying, standing on shoulders of giants, that they will be the shoulders that are being stood upon. I think it's beautiful that they can find meaning in that. There's almost a melancholy sense of beauty in that, right? But I think that's also what life is. And I think that so many people search for purpose, right? So many people search for meaning. And I would probably say that few find it. And I think this is fundamental as to why. Because most people go searching for meaning for themselves. It's an isolated search. Where meaning comes from, where it can be derived, is being connected to something bigger than yourself. Now, that's not a new concept, but what really fascinates me about this idea, though, is this idea that we're living for the people that came before us as well as the ones that are coming after us. At no point are we ultimately living for ourselves. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't and can't enjoy our lives. Not at all. It's not what I'm saying. And ironically, I would say that the more that we live for others, the more we will end up enjoying our life, because meaning has to be baked into that. It has to. When we're connected to that grand of a scheme, there is beauty in that. There's meaning, there's value. That is beautiful. It's a relay race. You know, I'll close this out by saying that recently, Jessie, my wife, and I have been watching The Wheel of Time on Amazon. Shout out to Connor, a friend who is a huge fan, to make an understatement, of the books, and recommended it. We're totally into that kind of stuff. And what was really interesting to me as we were watching, really struck me, I got chills, was, without giving too much away here, essentially there's hippie people, and they're not the only ones who speak to this sentiment, but what they said really, really resonated for me, is that they're a non-violent people, and somebody who joined, their band of travelers was confused about why they wouldn't take up weapons. How do you defend yourselves? You don't. You just like, if the people choose to turn to you in violence and they kill you, then they kill you. You're dead. But then the reason for this was because violence only begets violence. By choosing nonviolence, that would pass this along to a mother's child, for instance, where hopefully the next generation is better. Hopefully the next generation does not continue this trend of violence. And the mother understands then that she is not living for herself. She's living for her child. She's doing it so that future generations have a chance. And what she said, all of this, I shared all of this to essentially get to this part, which is something to the effect of, the wheel takes us back in and we get turned back in to the wheel of time. So the wheel keeps on turning and we will get churned out at some other point. Now, you don't even have to believe in past lives and next lives and things to feel the impact of that. All that means simply is we are never really living for ourselves. We're always living for others. The ones that have come before us and the ones that will come after us. And again, not in a sad way, not in a way that doesn't empower us, but in a way that connects us to everything, to past, present, and future. And to me, that is beautiful. To me, that is a gift. How fortunate we are to have that opportunity, to be a part of something so beautiful. So what I'm going to leave you with here is a question, which is, how can you feel connected to something bigger? It doesn't have to be at the scale of the world. It can be, but it could also just be at your family level. You want to leave the world a better place for your child. It could be at a community level. You want your community to flourish. You want to start initiatives that make it better and that others can carry on. What are the things that you can do to feel grateful for those who came before you and provided everything that you have, directly or indirectly, and also feel connected to leaving this beautiful life better for those to come after you? Thanks so much for hanging out. I've really enjoyed it, and I would love to hear from you what your thoughts are, what any of those things that just came up for you are, or just general feedback, what you think about this topic in general. And if you would like more things like this, I would love to know. Would love to have you here, invite you to subscribe to continue hanging out. And with that, I'll talk to you soon. Much love, Benjamin.